Hello and welcome to Code 3 Conversations. I am Cece Strong, and this Code 3 Conversations is once again a robust discussion about things happening in law enforcement and how they impact the community. We have discussions and audiences that actually can give us some insight into what they're thinking about with change that's needed in law enforcement. Let's face it, only thing that we see most times are the negative things happening within law enforcement. And after 30 years being in the profession, I know internally there is a lot of work to be done. Well, today, as always, we want to remember the riots method. So, those who are sharing from the audience standpoint, we would want you to remember to be respectful, have integrity with what you're actually sharing. Make sure you do that. Be open minded. We all have our opinions about things, but we're not always right. We are not always wrong, but our opinions matter. So be open minded and sharing with others and listen to what they have to say. Be truthful in anything that you're sharing. If it's something that is public knowledge, let us know. You can read all about that. And then finally, be supportive of the idea of honest and heartfelt communication. We will only get there if we strive to do better and understand each other and to have an impact for change in law enforcement. Well, today I have back with me Chief Eric Strong, now retired. And I also have to put that plug in that he is running for that very change in law enforcement. So, retired Chief Eric Strong, welcome in. And I want to jump right in for our audience sake and let's get into the topics that we have prepared for people for this Code 3 conversation. Um, Let me get us going. And I may have a little bit of a lull there. Sorry for that. Technology is trying to do what it does. And we know
Always,
it'll
always. They're
always
always going to
hiccup.
be doing something. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we're going to jump right in. And I know this is a topic that we've had up before, and my team put it there again. It's probably because we talked about it and there were so many other things that came about. But you've often said, Eric, that traffic stops are inherently dangerous. And I heard you put it that if that is the case, why are we not getting everybody out of the car? And so it stands to reason that different mindsets get behind the wheel. And now they're dealing with different mindsets in the cars that are stopped. So a traffic stop is, someone speeding. They're stopped because of something that they did. They're weaving along the road and they might be drunk. Is there any number of reasons why that those two cars ends up on the side of the road? And that interaction between those two people it's huge because it dictates what's going to happen next. And so, with that being said, the whole point of them being inherently dangerous, let's talk about that difference though. When it's someone in certain areas, like where I grew up in Compton, unashamedly, I say that, compared to, let's say, Beverly Hills or what they consider the more affluent areas. What do you think? What are your thoughts in that? I know I have my opinions.
Well, I have a lot of thoughts about that. And, I think you know that one of the things that really comes to mind is when I ran last time, I was interviewed by ALADS. And
Mm,
they looked at an organization on my website or on my resume that was Police Against Racism. And, I went through the endorsement process and there was an opportunity for them to ask additional questions. And I remember this guy very arrogantly saying, "So I looked on your website and it says you're part of this board, Police Against Racism. And so do you think there's racism in law enforcement?" I looked at him, I said, "Yes, absolutely." "Oh, really? Well, do you think it's in the sheriff's department?" I said, "Yep, I sure do." "Oh, well, yeah. Why don't you share that with it?" And it was like this very arrogant cockiness. I said, "Well," I said, "there's two ways I could tell you that there's racism." I said, "Honestly, that I've experienced." I said, number one is in the promotional process. Whereas, Every time there's a sergeant's list, lieutenant's list, we got to get a certain amount of blacks, we got to get a certain amount of Asians, we got to get a certain amount of
Mm.
Latinos, we got to get a certain amount of women. I said, that's a discriminatory practice right there, because when you really could just be promoting. I said, but here's the other one. I said, the Supreme Court has said that traffic stops are inherently dangerous. That's right, they are. So we can get people out of the car. Yep, we can. He's just right in there with me. He's buying his hook, line, and sinker. I said, okay. So we get people out of the car, right? For our safety. Yes, that's right. I said, okay. So how come we get people out of the car in Compton, but we don't get them out of the car in Malibu? If it's the traffic stop, that's what's inherently dangerous. What's the difference? And you could just see his face completely just, he knew exactly where I was going with that and he ran right into it. I said, because it's a
Mm.
racially based issue. It's
Mm.
based on a race. It's not based on the traffic stop. Because if the traffic stop is inherently dangerous, we should get every single person out of the car because that's what the Supreme Court gives us the ability to do. But we only do it in certain demographics. The other thing is what we'll see oftentimes is, oh, we get, what is it? And so many traffic stops are in traffic stops at this station. We recovered this amount of dope, this amount of guns. We made this amount of arrests. Okay. But I'm going to go back to this and I'm going to say these two cities because I worked both of them. If we get everybody out of the car in Compton, we get nobody out of the car in Pasadena. How are we going to know what was in a car in Pasadena if we never get anybody out of the car and search it? So could we have found narcotics? I think so. Could we have found guns?
Absolutely.
I think so because here's the deal. I worked in Pasadena. And I worked in Pasadena after working Compton PD, so I knew very well how to get in a car. And I got in cars and I found dope and I found weapons. But most of the cops there don't know how to do it. They don't know what they're looking for. Or maybe they have a preconceived notion or bias in their mind that, oh, these people are harmless. They're not here to hurt anybody. They're not criminals. I'm just pulling them over for speeding. So, and I just want to dig in just a little bit further on the root causes of this. And let's go back to the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, right? When, in essence, blacks didn't have civil rights
Mm.
before the civil rights movement. When police would do whatever they want and they would take blacks out of the car and they would search the cars. And we have several cases, not all, I have to say this, we're not talking, but we have several incidents and instances of planting evidence, of
Mm.
planting things in a car. So when you're so used to as a industry of violating civil rights and treating one group of people differently than another group, and then all of a sudden now the laws change and you can't do that, does that mean it automatically stops? No. So are traffic stops inherently dangerous? Yes, absolutely. Um, should there be a high degree of caution? Yes, absolutely. Right? These people are in a metal box and they have this protection and they can get away. They can harm you, get away. You know what I mean? You're in this dead zone while you're walking up to it and they're looking at you in the mirror. And you know what I mean? They have a lot of advantages. There could be more people in the car that you can't even see with tinted back windows and all these different things. It's dark, it's at night. They're very dangerous. Probably one of the most dangerous things
Mhm.
that's a law enforcement thing. But should they all be treated the same way? That's the question.
Mhm.
And I would say yes. And I'm not here to say that I want to get people in Malibu or Pasadena out of the car and I want to, make them sit on the curb and I want to make them stand out in the rain or in the hot sun, you know what I mean? Or be uncomfortable. I'm not saying that that's the answer. What I'm saying is people should be treated equitably. That's my
And
take on it.
and we know that affluent areas and being affluent in a from an affluent family or area is not necessarily indicative of free of crime. I
Right.
have to say that again. It doesn't mean that there is no criminal activity because we are seeing more and more that sometimes there is a whole lot of criminal activity in affluent areas and what does it look like. I go back to the John Wayne Gacy's and the Ted
Mm-hmm.
Bundys and the people who committed hellacious crimes. And they probably, they said Ted Bundy was supposedly an attractive person. So I guess on a traffic stop, he wouldn't have been pulled out and put on the curb, but someone else who was innocent but didn't look like Ted Bundy would be pulled out of the car. And I go back to just interactions before becoming a law enforcement officer and seeing sometimes my brothers who I knew my dad would have choked and done worse if they were involved in some illegal activity. But I saw the way that that wasn't the lead in. It wasn't a lead in with questions so much as I'm leading in with knowing that you're wrong. You just have to be doing something wrong. And so I think these traffic stops, the inherently dangerous is great on paper, but how are we really approaching them when someone's done something wrong? Absolutely, they deserve the ticket, they deserve the arrest, they deserve to go through the whole process, and they deserve whatever's coming once they go to before a judge or whatever. But it starts at that first traffic stop, and I'm in agreement with you. We're not getting them out of the car in certain places, but in others it's almost an automatic. And in speaking, just because we did, and I led in with you running for office, I remember during the last campaign, one of the campaign candidates made mention of how if you're in East LA, you know that these people riding around on these bicycles, you got to stop them. And then if you're in the other, it's always the black and brown communities that have these people committing crimes.
Right.
False, but it speaks
False.
to the mindset of that individual saying that and them actually believing that in their heart that that is automatically tied to wrongdoing. They're not articulating something that the person did so much as if I stop another enough of them that look like that, I'm going to get what I'm looking for and what I'm seeking. So the
Right.
inherently
And
dangerous part of that title is huge in that you treat it all the same until you get to a point where you need to shift. And that's where that missing component is. You're shifting before knowing that you need to.
I think you mentioned something about with your brothers and, coming from a position of you did something wrong. And I'm going to disagree with that a little bit. I think it's coming from a position of I can do this. It ain't necessarily that I think you did something wrong, but you're in this position, you're in this neighborhood, you're of this thing, and this is how we do it. Um, and
Yes, I think that
I
it
don't know.
plays into it. It
Yeah,
that
but
plays into
I
it.
think, yeah, I don't know that they feel like everybody's done something wrong, or maybe they do. I mean, that's part of it, I would say. Um, because I do know that even in some of the more affluent areas, you can think somebody's done something wrong, but if you don't think you can do it, if you're worried about a complaint, if you're worried about whether this person is a lawyer or a doctor or knows somebody, even though you thought they could do it wrong, see, in certain communities, they feel like they could treat those people any way they want to because they're
Absolutely.
less than. So I'm just saying, I want to add that to it. It's not just starting from a position of you must have done something wrong. It's, yeah, you must have done something wrong and I can do whatever I want to do. And so, um,
Absolutely. I think that it
that's
goes
just what I'm
hand
adding
in
to it.
hand. The authority that I have, and I can assert my authority over you. But I also believe that the mindset, if you're in your mind about that group of people, regardless of who you're
Yep.
coming into contact, I'm crossing into that actual city. So I know that there's nothing but criminals that live in this area. I mean,
Right.
I take it as far as my work and coming into the department and the shock when I was going through my application process. You've never smoked weed. It was automatically thought that because of where I grew up, and he referenced the guy doing my polygraph testing. He said, "You grew up in Compton. You mean to tell me you never smoked weed?" Yes. Public service announcement. CC Strong has never, ever smoked marijuana to this day, 50 plus years later in life. And it's like if you have that mindset when you're coming to work, that's going to come through your uniform. I talk about it all the time. Are you wearing the uniform or is it wearing you? Now put that is the uniform wearing you when you walk up to that traffic stop? Are you
Think,
automatically
I,
in the mindset that this could be this because this area that I'm working in, I want to get to this hot station where a whole lot of stuff is happening. That in and of
Right.
itself is a foundation of the
Well,
mindset before the
and,
traffic
and
stop.
and I'll tell you this, and one of the things where I know for a fact that this happens is not just from me seeing it, but from me driving down the street, living in Inglewood, going to pick up the kids in Hawthorne, getting pulled over by deputy sheriffs from my very own station, not recognizing my vehicle or knowing who I am, walking up, and the first thing they're on a traffic violation, walking up, the first thing they're doing is trying to open the door, get out of the car. Hold up, time out. So I already know. First of all, what's your, and they said, well, you were tailgating that car. Okay, let's just say I was tailgating the car. You didn't see that the car actually cut me off and I just backed off. I didn't slam on the brakes. I just took my foot off the gas and created. You were, if I'm tailgating a car, why do you want to get in my car? Why do you want to get me out of the car? Write a
Yeah.
ticket, create, write a citation and send me on my way. But you're pulling up, treating me like I'm some kind of robbery, carjacking, murder suspect, talking to me in some
Mhm.
kind of way. And I really had to tell him, I said, if you stopped and looked for a minute, you'd realize that, yeah, I worked at your station. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. Yeah, you saw a black man driving down the street in a nice car, period. Let's just say you did see a traffic violation. Understood. Yes. Car did come over in my lane and cut me off. So when we passed your intersection, in your eyes, I was tailgating him, not knowing what had happened just 20, 30 yards prior.
Yeah.
So I know it
And
happened.
I,
I know
yeah,
it
and
happened. There's no, yeah,
I've been pulled over. I'll leave the city out of it, but I remember it being by someone I could tell was probably brand new in uniform, just the mannerisms and how he approached the car. And his words to me were, "So where are you headed?"
right.
I'm an
Why?
adult. Like, it's not, "Hey, ma'am, I stopped you. You were going too fast. You ran through the light. You didn't stop at the stop sign. You were weaving in and out of traffic," whatever it is that led
What you doing in
me
this
to come
neighborhood?
on your radar. Yes. And it's
What you doing
like,
over here?
so where you headed? And so I asked him, I said, "Does that matter?" And I always, because we talk about the talk that we have with our children so that they don't end up, we're now marching to the tune down the middle of a church aisle. I'm just saying
Hmm.
that. I don't want that. So there's this talk that you give to your children and they, be sure you're safe. So me, instantly, I put my hands on the steering wheel. I don't want to fidget. I'm not moving around. And that's things that was suggested because you keep yourself safe. And to ask me where I'm headed, like you stopped me, like, are you asking me for lunch? Like, what do you mean? Where am I headed? I'm
Right.
an adult. I can go wherever I want to go. Well, as I sat there and talked to this gentleman, I realized that he didn't have any reason to stop me. He
Hmm.
did have a reason, but it was about his mindset of seeing this woman in a very nice car driving down the street, and that nice car doesn't look like me. I
Hmm.
recently had a chance to speak on stage in South Carolina, and I was there for the Powerful on Purpose Summit. And while I'm on stage, I spoke to that very thing. Officers don't look like me. Internally, the officers don't look like me. On the streets, officers don't look like me.
Right.
And someone in the crowd, when I said I was a drill instructor for 5 years and I started calling cadence on stage, someone said, "Really?" Because there was this shock. And we spend so much time in these shocks. We walk up to these traffic stops or we stop the person because, quite honestly, they just don't look like they belong in this neighborhood. It's just someone that would have that mindset, Eric, honestly doesn't deserve the uniform. I'm going to just put that out there.
Well, let me ask you this though. I want to ask you a question about that mindset. Well, let me share one thing and then let's talk about the mindset. So, much like you, a local city here in LA County, known, and if you ask a group of black men, what two cities will you be pulled over in if you're driving down the street, this one always comes up. So I'm in Culver City. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. I'm in this city, um, and I'm facing a left turn arrow. It's a left turn arrow. So I'm stopped behind the limit line. I mean, everything's right. I'm facing a left turn arrow. On the opposite side going this way is a black and white patrol car. So on the left turn arrow, you're only going to turn when the arrow's green, which means that you have the right of way. It's not like I turned in front of somebody, I cut them off, anything. Light turns green, I make my left turn right in front of these two officers. Here they come, pull me over. I'm a police officer. I know full well I have not committed any traffic violations, but I also know where I am. And they walk up, do their traffic stop, and start asking questions. Same thing. Where are you coming from? Why does that matter? Where are you headed? Doesn't matter. I said, let me explain something to you. I said, I'm an off-duty police officer. I do have a gun in the car. Well, why you need to say that? Well, can we see your ID? Yeah, sure. Okay, you're free to go. I said, hold on. Why'd you pull me
Why'd
over?
you
Hey,
stop
brother, don't worry
me?
about it.
Yeah.
Hey, bro, you're good, man. You're bro. Don't worry about it, bro. You're good, man. Go ahead, man. Be safe out there, bro. No, I want to know, why'd you pull me over? So when it goes to that mindset that you're talking about, number one is they're taught to do that. There is a culture that caught, like you just said, the mindset. So did they have you mentioned a person with that mindset shouldn't be wearing the uniform. Did they have that mindset when they got on the job, or were they taught that mindset? So I guess in either
I
case they
think it
have
could
it
be either
now.
case.
But I
Hmm.
mean, but in either case they have it now, and they don't deserve to wear the uniform, or but I think the bigger issue is, where did they get it? Because if they didn't have it before, and in other words, driving down the street as a civilian before you ever become a police officer, are you looking at people and saying, I think that person needs to be stopped? I think that person is dangerous when you're driving down the street. But then you get into the profession and you're taught that. Is it the person with the mindset, or is it the profession that's creating that mindset and therefore is the problem? So,
Well,
I mean, I
I
think
would
it's a little bit of
say,
both, but huh?
yeah, and I would say that we talk about percentages of people in law enforcement. If you have grown up, and let's just keep it real, you were talking about being a black man driving down the street. If you were rooted in the fact that black people are inherently dangerous, let's change the title on, if I'm pointing the right way, let's change this title for a second. If your mindset was that black people are inherently dangerous, then when you see black people driving down the street, they're inherently dangerous. We haven't even gotten to the traffic stop and then getting them out of the car. And so I get what you're saying because
Is
the
that a
culture,
typical
yes.
mindset though? I guess it is, huh? It can be. When
How
you
many
say
videos
inherently
have you?
dangerous, I mean, I guess when you
Uh,
say inherently dangerous, that's like a cop term. That's a Supreme Court term. So I would say
no,
maybe people think they're bad, or maybe it is. Maybe they do think they're dangerous. I don't know, but I'm with you. Go
yeah,
ahead. I'm sorry.
here's the deal. I say dangerous, and I'm going to stick with that word because of fear. Foundationally, there is a fear, but there's a fear that's balanced with a superiority that gets into some people. And I'm not talking about everybody, but you mix the combination of superiority with fear, and it's a lethal cocktail. And sadly enough, in uniform, when we're doing these traffic stops, I only use the word inherently and said that black people were inherently dangerous because we're just keep straight talking, right? About our experiences being pulled over for absolutely nothing. And it's where are you going? As if I have to answer and respond to you. I am an adult.
Yes.
I don't have to. But if I'm not speeding, I have not run through a light. I have not committed any type of traffic violation, and you're pulling me over to ask me where I'm headed. What on earth else could it be? That's an even better question. Why
Right.
did you stop me? Which was your end
Right.
question to them is like, why did you pull me over? Is that every traffic stop? No.
Right.
But we've been stopped enough, you and I together, probably on more than one hand, to know that that
Usually
is
when you're
a
driving.
mindset.
I'm sorry. I just have to put that in there.
No, yeah, you have to
Sorry.
get a
Go ahead.
plug
Go,
or
please. I don't want to
something.
interrupt you. Go ahead.
But that mindset, and now that mindset is in the uniform. Foundationally, the way you treat people, I'm sorry. The sheriff's department shouldn't have to teach you how to have common courtesy and decency to other human beings. The training we lean on so much needs a whole heck of a lot of work. But I'm sorry, I've seen the end result being a drill instructor and people wanting to do that job and ready and willing, and then they get inducted into that mindset, like you say. But we've also had some recruits who have shown their hands of just straight up being who they are and saying the wrong things and getting themselves separated from saying stupidity because it came in the door with them, and their mindset speaks to a whole lot. And the sad part about it is, let's just call it what it is, Eric. Racism shatters. You start talking about racism, people lose their minds. Oh my God, everything's not about race. But it is, because that's the foundation of all the complaints that people are having. You're pulling me over because I'm Black. You didn't give this person a ticket because they're not Black. This guy got shot because he had a knife and he was coming at you. And then this other one, you're trying to reason and talk him down, and you're dancing
Trying
around the
to tase him
car to keep him
and
from
running,
stab you.
trying to tase him and
Exactly.
running.
So
Right.
we would be delusional if we sit and we think, and not, again, we can always preface it with, this is not everybody. Because trust me,
Right.
when they say all cops are bad, heck no. No, we're not. That's that chosen select few that think that they probably have some of that bravado that's well beyond what they're really ready to run up on. But that
Right.
fear mixed with their mindset is what I'm speaking to. That now we're at this traffic stop, and yeah, this person has to be dirty. I'm sorry, social media. How many videos have you seen where now people are videotaping officers and they're standing outside the car telling them, well, yeah, we saw you give your son. I watched one the other day. You gave your son something out. You gave that guy something out of the car. Who is that guy? That's my son. I was giving him his coffee, his actual mug. He was going to work. I'm dropping him off. No, it looked like you passed him something, and this
Did
officer wouldn't get
marking
off
his
of it.
coffee. Right.
Yes, but he wouldn't get off of it. And I would challenge, would you have said that to someone who looked like you? I don't think so. I really don't.
Right.
And those are some of those deep rooted things that lead to traffic stops are inherently
Yeah,
dangerous, but only in certain areas and not in others. So
I agree.
I think that's my thought on that. And if you're good, we'll go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Let's see what they got for us. Ooh. Ooh, my team is on it today. I was like, I wonder, is anybody said, hey, let's make sure we put them on the spot? Because the immigration laws
Ooh wee.
and whew, I do know that their 1996 was the addition of 287G. I may have that wrong, but section 287G. And it kind of gave the whole premise of, and if I'm getting this wrong, I know that's part of what happened in 1996. But there is some things in those clauses that say that ICE is then to have some type of agreement with local law enforcement. And by agreement, to me, I don't see that means there's a takeover because you're at the federal level and we're at the state and city levels. It's almost like this, when you're doing rock, paper, scissors, and you got a rock and I got paper, and I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to cover the rock. It's just my take on it. And then some of the things that I've seen, and I don't mind saying this absolutely, and people can disagree with it, the shootings that happened in Minneapolis. Certified as a force instructor, and you as well. It was a grueling course to even get to be certified as a force instructor. There is no way that that was, especially for us in California, that would not have been, it wouldn't have washed. There is no way, form, or fashion. But to people that don't know any better, whatever the spin that's put on it can have some serious ramifications. And immediately, the head of the Department of Homeland Security is saying these people were terrorists. The older lady sitting on her couch watching this, that can have some serious ramifications. Because now in my mindset, well, yeah, they deserved to be mistreated. And so that's just my take on some of it. And it is like, this is a very deep and interesting topic. And I'm interested to know what your thoughts are when it comes to
Yeah. I mean,
ICE.
first of
And
all, looking at the shootings that you're talking about in Minneapolis and being a force instructor, and we stopped putting ourselves in front of vehicles 20 years ago. That those policies and shooting at a moving vehicle. But let's go back to who ICE really is and this recruitment that's being done. From what I've seen, many of them are outcast, people that either couldn't make it in law enforcement or have been fired from law enforcement, or you know what I mean, and they're giving them this big bonus. And I actually saw an interview of one ICE agent where they were interviewing them, and they asked him about what about the values, what about the integrity, what about doing what's right, and he says, hey, sometimes you have to put your values aside to pay your bills. He actually said that, like, I got to pay my bills. I didn't, in other words, I wasn't working, and this is employment for me. And so sometimes you got to put your values aside.
Like on
Um,
an island
yeah,
and your survival. So I'm going to eat you and your family's not going to survive. Mine is going to, that's crazy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so,
Did he have on a
you know,
mask? I got to know because people were sewing up in
no, I
arms
don't think
about
he
people
did. I
wearing
don't
masks,
think he did. Not during
but
the
they
interview.
walk around with masks.
I don't think he
Okay.
did. Yeah. So I'm gonna say this coming from a guy that was on a SWAT team. And being on the SWAT team, our job were to do these high risk entries, and we would go do the high risk warrant entries. We would go in the door when we knew there was a person that murdered somebody with a gun that said, I'm not going back to prison. I'm shooting it out. Okay, so the SWAT team is the one that goes in there to get them. According to this administration, oh, we're going to get all the criminals. We're going to get all the criminals, the murderers, the carjackers, the rapists. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. Maybe it's happening. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, but what I'm seeing is a bunch of cowardly acts of people violating constitutional rights, of racial profiling, of just walking up to people saying, where are you from? Of abusing people that are smaller than them, pushing down and pulling and, on women. And I think, and I would tell any ICE agent that I saw that did that to their face, dude, you're a coward. Really? You really think you're doing something? I'm not impressed. I've done the job. I've been the one to be the first one in the door. Go do that, go show me that, and go get some murderers, some rapists, some carjackers, and maybe I'll think differently about you. But I think this is not about immigration. I don't believe. I think it's about race. And I'll tell you why. I mean, if you look it up, an undocumented person being here without a proper visa, without, documentation, it's a civil offense. It's not even criminal offense. And then if you come across the border outside of a checkpoint, which is you illegally cross into the United States, it's a misdemeanor.
Yep.
We don't even hold people with misdemeanors in our jails. They get a ticket. They're released.
Absolutely.
Driving without a driver's license, 12,500 is a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
That's really what it amounts to. So
Yeah.
this whole thing that they're making the country safe, I call BS. No, they're not. It's a racial issue because here's the other thing. As we're seeing, they are going to people that look like they're from the Middle East. They're going up to Latinos. They're going up to blacks. Are you from Jamaica? Are you from Haiti? It is a racial thing because there's a lot of people here from European countries. We have a huge sex trade that goes on here in the US where people are coming from and being sexually forced, to come here illegally, and they're blonde
That should
haired,
be on a billboard
right?
nowadays.
And they're blonde hair with blue eyes. ICE is not walking up to people with blonde hair and blue eyes. And I'm not saying I want them to. I'm saying what they're doing is wrong, period. What they're doing is wrong. They shouldn't be doing and racially profiling and violating constitutional rights of any. But what I'm saying is this is a racial issue
Yeah.
because until you do it to all, until you do it to every single person, if you're selecting people based on the color of the skin, the texture of their hair, the language that they speak, it is a racially motivated, it's a racially driven assignment, which is wrong. And we are going backwards. We are
Yeah.
going backwards in time with what they're doing. So ICE is, to me, all wrong. I'm not saying that we don't need immigration enforcement. I think every country has a right to protect their borders. Every country has a right to, have immigration laws. What I'm saying is that
Absolutely.
this administration And the way that they are conducting themselves are showing that they are trying to rid this country of anybody that does not look like them. And that's just my take on it. And the fact that law enforcement would support that, especially law enforcement officers who were sworn to take, to uphold and protect the citizens and protect the Constitution. The fact that law enforcement officers would support that based on their political views, I think that's kind of foul. You can have your political views about whatever you want to do, but once you put on that
Absolutely.
uniform, you have taken an oath and you swore to protect the Constitution and you swore to protect the citizens, not to support whatever idiotic president ideas come forward because you like him and you voted for him. So that's just my take on it, and I don't hold back.
And it speaks to what we were talking about on the first slide with the mindset, because in uniform there it has become so political when that was not, you know what I mean? They didn't have us when we filled out an application to put what your party was. And whether, because heaven forbid, it might have been some people washed out and never would have been hired. And some of the good things that they did would never have happened or taken place. But there's so much of an automatic 100%. People have such a you are with or you are against, and
Right.
if it's not what I am pushing and you're not getting on board with it, then off with your heads. You recently said something about people unfriending people in social media. If you're for this, then unfriend me. And realistically, you're just outing who you always were anyway. You were never a friend, and it was never about friendship. That was about whether you agree with me 100%. And here's the problem: we do not grow with only people telling us the good things. We grow when people actually call us to the carpet on the things that are not good. And
Right.
unfortunately, with this situation, if you're going to buildings where people are trying to get their citizenship straight, or they are actually trying to turn in the paperwork to prove whatever,
Yes.
to get extension, if you're hanging out and you're grabbing little kids and using them as decoys to get to their parents, I'm sorry. Like
Yes.
the crimes, if they're here, I'm in agreement with you. Borders need to be secure. But here's the problem: people just chant the same words they heard from someone that looks like them and it agrees with them. And they're in these silos and they don't have any other differences of mind. But shame on an officer who lets the uniform wear them, and it's only about that badge and any other badge that is similar in shape or glimmer in the sun, that is automatically that we do everything right and everyone else is the enemy and against. And I'm sorry, I got to put this plug here. To say that people are coming here and taking jobs, half of the jobs that some of these people are working, folks that are in the uniform wouldn't even want to do. So even that craziness about taking jobs, I hear people say that people are coming over into our over across the border and they're taking jobs from people. And there's just always a moving of the finish line to be able to push a negative narrative in that direction. And it's amazing to me.
I want to just say this. I mean, I think you mentioned about losing friends, right? And I think that the word respect
Mm.
really only comes into play when there's conflict or disagreement.
Mm.
Because if we all see things the same way, it's just concurrence, and you and I talked about this recently about, friends or a friend or two that are very, very different now. They've changed the way that they interact. They don't speak. They just, you know what I mean? And it really only started with this political stance. So I'll give an example of people that wanted or didn't want to take the COVID vaccine. Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? What I didn't hear was people, at least from me, people that didn't want to take it, the people that took it were like, okay, cool for you. But the people that didn't want to take it looked at the people that, oh, you're an idiot, you're dumb, you're the, and it just became this. If you took the shot, then you can't be my friend. Well, respect comes in when there's a disagreement. And why can't you just
Yeah.
say, hey, you took the shot, I'm not going to take it. I respect your decision, and I'll respect yours not to take it.
Yeah.
That is the divisiveness that comes about from this political stuff that I don't understand. I've never ever in my adult life, and I've even asked my parents if they ever lost a friend over whether they were Republican or Democrat.
Yep.
And my parents go back much further than I do. So, and the answer has
Yeah.
inevitably been no. But all of
Yeah.
a sudden,
And
this one guy, huh? What would you say?
I always would post we vote behind partitions for a reason. And
Yes, it
growing
doesn't even
up,
matter.
I remember my dad
Yeah,
saying it's really nobody's business how you vote, because if it was a group sport, we would all walk in together at the same
it,
time. And
absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
I think that people gravitate to what is familiar to them. And I go back, I'm sorry, to that fear. There is a fear of differences and the dilution, if you will, of what used to be. And it's the fear of holding on to, we don't want this many people looking different. And inevitably, that's what's
Well, I think it's
happening.
the fear
People
that they're
are
starting to get
are
outnumbered.
it, true. I that is very much that's what I'm speaking to. It's like the so what does it cause? I now will actually speak to the negative things. You're stupid because you went and had this done. They start using titles and using certain language so that it's dog whistling to people who will understand their mindsets. And it the sad and shameful part about it is that it comes in waves, because right now there's a whole lot of silence about things that were just celebratory, and people were pumping their fist in the air about things, and now so much is coming out,
Right.
and so much filth. The same person that immediately made these Minneapolis victims the ones who were murdered, and that's what I am standing on. They were not, it wasn't a saving the
Avoidable.
world from
Completely
them.
avoidable. Completely avoidable.
Absolutely avoidable. The person to actually say that and say that these people were domestic terrorists is now no longer sitting in that position. And there's
Mhm.
talk that there was a premature statement. Well, we knew that already. But you're not going to get people actually speaking out against that, because it is do or die, uniform above everything else. And to heck with the mindsets of anyone having a differing opinion, or just, hey, I just don't agree with you. I'm with you. Why is it that we can't respect the fact that people are like, why is this person that you're now grabbing from a school, picking up their kid? How did they in any way impact my life or disrupt it?
Then
Like,
let's just talk about the person that's going and picking up somebody from the school. If you ask me, ICE is just trying to do numbers. Because if you truly wanted to go get the criminals, you would go to the LAPD, Chicago PD, New York PD, the sheriff's department, and you would go to their detective and say, hey, we want to help you solve some of these crimes. Let us know who you're looking for. Hey, we'll go get them for you because we're here to get the criminals. Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that
absolutely.
participation. I haven't seen, and again, you want to go and say, oh, Jane Doe, John Doe, we see that they have an immigration violation on them. Oh, their kid goes to school here. Hey, we're going to go get these numbers. We're going to go snatch him or her off the street. That is just some cowardly stuff. And anybody wearing those uniforms that thinks that they are contributing to society, I would beg to differ. And that's all. I just that to me,
Yeah,
the whole premise behind it and the way that they're operating is causing far more harm than any good that I can see out of it. And that's just my opinion.
absolutely. And there's a space for it. And yes, there should be laws and the rules should be followed. But the way that they're going about it is not in collaboration that I've seen with the local law enforcement. And unless there's some kind of collaboration, which is what I've always known with anything dealing with immigration, they've had collaboration when I was still working anyway. And so
Want us
they
to
at
come
least
bail them
had
out.
some
That's what
way.
they want. They want
Yeah,
us to
but
come bail them out when they get in over their head. Hey, come help us. Come help us. The
yes,
people are
I
attacking
yeah,
us. No.
absolutely.
No, y'all started
Yeah,
this mess. Y'all go and handle it. Do your thing. You got it right.
absolutely.
You got it.
But if the ultimate goal is to hold people accountable, which people don't like accountability, even beyond the ice. Some people just don't feel like they need to be held accountable for anything. But they usually, those same people, always have a thorough explanation with how we hold other people accountable. Anyone but
Mm-hmm.
us. You know what I mean? It's crazy. But anyway, we shall move on to our next topic. That one was a really interesting. I'm gonna tell the team, and if you guys, I know you all are listening. That's a good one. You put us on the spot with that one, but we're gonna work through it. So our next one is drum roll, jails versus patrol first.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, with the sheriff's department. What, and you and I have had this conversation before. It's like we send them into custody and now all they see is a certain amount of people. And I agree with that to a certain degree because I still go back to some people when you know what the right thing is to do and how to treat people decent as a human being. I don't think anybody can flip switch you into this robot of doing exactly what they say, thinking exactly like them. Somewhere deep inside of you is still the ability to do the right thing. And then some of it is a choice and some is the weakness that's been preyed on and people have been able to convince you of something. So I have a little bit we kind of disagree in a certain in this topic sometimes. So
Sometimes. I think so. I have the benefit of having come from another agency, right? And I graduated the academy on a Friday. And on Wednesday, the following week, Tuesday or Wednesday, I think we had a day or two of orientation and tours. I was in a patrol car and I was patrolling the community. And in doing that, I was coming in contact with, first of all, in an uncontrolled environment, and I was coming in contact with people, citizens, old women, old men, young kids, adolescents, middle-aged folks, men, women, you name it, gang members, non-gang members, victims, suspects. And so you learn to differentiate, which I think we do as human beings anyway. We differentiate when we're walking through a store, who's who. When we're in high school, we differentiate from those people that have the same interests we do. That person likes rock and roll and this person likes rap. You know what I mean? I don't like rock and roll. I don't like rap. I like country. So I hang out with the people that like the country. Whatever it is, where this person likes to ride skateboards, this one's a BMX rider. This person likes to surf. We're constantly differentiating from groups of people. And so I think that's very beneficial. And the other thing I will say is this, and let's just talk about LA County. LA County, right, has 44 or some odd other municipalities with law enforcement agencies. All of those law enforcement agencies do the same thing that I did. Santa Monica, Burbank, Glendale, Inglewood, Hawthorne, Redondo Beach, Culver City PD, Torrance PD, all of those graduate the academy, they go to some form of orientation, and then they hit the streets. The sheriff's department is the only agency, because they're the only one that has the jails, that their recruits come straight out of academy, and then they go and they spend years in the jail. Now, here's the point. You look at that photo right there. Everybody in that picture has on the same thing. Everybody in their picture, for the most part, has their hands in the same place behind their back. Everybody in that picture is standing up against a wall on the other side of that red line, because they know if they cross that red line by their left foot, something bad's going to happen. So here's what you have. You indoctrinate deputies, young deputies. And let me digress for a minute. You're right. When you know the right thing to do and you're that person, then you know the right thing to do and you're that person. However, we have seen it that there is a group of people that are very impressionable, that are very young, that absorb things that are given to them, and they move with that, you know what I mean? And they move on that. So here's a couple of things that you learn. Number one, everybody that you come in contact with is a crook. They've at least been arrested. Whether they're pre-trial or pre-arraigned, they're guilty or not, they've at least been arrested. Number two, they all look the same. They all wear the same thing. Number three is they all have to do what we tell them to do. You don't cross that red line. You walk with your hands behind your back. You put your right shoulder on the wall. You're going to eat when I tell you to eat. You're going to shower when I tell you to shower, right? Lights are going to go off when I turn them off. You're going to wake up when I tell you to wake up. You're going to get your rec time when I decide you get your rec time. So there's this absolute authority over everything that they do. You're going to get your mail when I decide to give it to you. I get to control the TV and what channel it is and whether or not it even goes on. So now you take these deputies and you send them out into society, and let's just say they go and they work a city that maybe demographically looks like the demographics that's in the jail, because we know we have statistics that say that our jails are full of black and brown people. So now you go work in a community with black and brown people, and you're looking at them like they're all crooks and criminals. Not you, not everybody, but the possibility is there that it happens. And not only that, but you've been working in an environment for 3 or 4 years. Well, when I tell you to do something, you do it. And if you don't do it, in an instant, all my buddies are going to be here and we're going to make you do what we told you to do, one way or the other, by hook or crook. And now I'm telling somebody, hey, stop. And they say, I won't say it on the thing, but I use some expletives and they say, no, wait a minute, you can't do that to me. The last 3 to 5 years, everybody that looked like you did exactly what I said. And if they didn't, there was consequences and repercussions. So I think it can cause a lot of problems because you built this, you've created this idea of you will do what I tell you to do. I dictate what happens. I dictate when you shower, when you eat, when you get your mail. And now I'm telling the public, do what I tell you to do, and I'm going to dictate the circumstances. And the uncontrolled public is saying, yeah, no, you're not. And I think that's where we get a lot of the escalation and a lot of the authority. I'm the police. You're going to do what I tell you to do. And so, not to say that that can't happen in a municipal agency. We see it. It does happen in municipal agencies as well. But I just think that I don't know if there'll ever be any proof or any absolute to which one is better, going to patrol or going to custody first. But I do think that I can tell you this, having worked other agencies, having interacted with a lot of other agencies, there is a there is a camaraderie and a brotherhood. When you see somebody in uniform, you give that nod and you give them that courtesy and that respect because you know that they're putting that uniform on and putting themselves on the front lines just like you are. When you look at the
Okay.
sheriff's department, there is a disdain within the ranks of their own people. And they also look at even other agencies as less than. I don't know why. I don't know where that comes from, but I wonder if it comes from something about the jail environment. I don't know. I don't know, but you have deputies that don't like deputies because of the floor they work or the station that they work. You know what I mean? It's one thing to have pride in your own agency to say, we're the best. We wear tan and green. You guys that are in blue, we hear it all the time. Real cops wear blue. You know what I mean? There's a joke. So it's one thing to say, we're tan and green, you're wearing blue, and have a sense of, but when you're treating other people in tan and green with the same patch and the same badge on less than or something, I don't know where that culture comes from, but it may not be attributed to the jails, but maybe it is. I don't know. Anyway, that's my
I,
take
I
on it. I
think
think,
I I think you touched on a couple points that are not just about the jails versus patrol. First, like where you're assigned. There is this difference in custody versus patrol. So it's a mindset, and it even bleeds into the upper ranks of how, even like your campaign, most things are based on the data and patrol numbers. But interestingly enough, a lot of the media things are about how inmates are actually treated in the jails. And you think about that, whether it's jails or patrol, I know the difference as far as the assignment and what you're meaning by, sending them into a mindset where it can, root into their spirit that these folks, because this is all I've seen, are probably criminals. I get what you say with that. But I would like to know how much of that is missed in the training component. And let me tell you why. People speak a lot about training and what they don't get. And we need to put deputies back in through training, and we need to make sure that they get better training. And that usually comes from the public. Like they will say, community members will say, why didn't you just shoot the tires out? I saw that on a video with the whole thing about Minneapolis. And so sad for those two people killed and their families. But the idea of why didn't they shoot the tires out? And that mindset of what they think is some semblance of compassion, and they don't know the training behind the scenes. They're the first ones to yell about, we need more training. But how much of this, Eric, in your opinion, is also on the people now when you're in custody? Now you're going to training before going to patrol. Let's take away their initial training they get in the academy. You still go back to training before you go out into patrol. How much of this is not infused into the mindset to avoid that type of? I still go back to your mindset and some things that you grew up with and it was okay, you bring into that uniform. That's also part of the psyche. So now, because we know that that happens and it exists, what is the agency doing, rather than we're in training, we're going to get out early, we're going to make sure we get you guys out on time, or we may even get out early, we're going to give you all the answers to the test, tell me when I'm wrong, stop me when I'm wrong.
Oh, you're
And
right.
it's not
You're right.
really quality training that they're getting. And because everybody's mindset is training is for wimps, and oh gosh, you want to go to training and that's so crazy, and
Oh, I
they
don't
make
know.
it a
I don't know.
negative. When does it become about the quality of the training that we're giving specifically for that transition? What part
Well,
of that factors in?
yeah, I don't know if patrol school is that mindset of, well, let's hurry up and get you through this and get you out of this. I don't know. You went through patrol school. I never did. Um, Maybe it is. Okay. So there you go. That answers that. But we
It's a
talked about it
mini
in another
academy.
episode.
It's almost like
Okay.
I
So in the
remember it
middle,
being like
so in
a
the mini academy, I thought it was maybe a little bit more serious. They put some more effort into the scenarios for the getting you out there to be in patrol safely. But I listen. Let me go to this. You're right. But I think we talked about this in another episode, and we talked about the difference between the sheriff's department and municipal agencies. I hear you. Yes, training is huge. What is done
no, no,
um
training is what the
to
people are yelling about
yeah, well, training,
as
but I
well.
mean, but the way that the training is presented and how it
Mhm.
goes is huge. So, but remember we talked about the sheriff's department is big and everything is inside. So all you keep doing is regurgitating the same mindset because you have deputies training deputies. When I was at a municipal agency, when I went to a training class at Rio Hondo, it might have been a law enforcement officer that was also an instructor at the college, a professor or somebody that had their teaching credentials that was training this, and they were training it from this global aspect. And they would say, "Hey, the way you handle it in Pomona may be different the way you handle it in Torrance, and so let's talk about it, right?" And so there was this diversity of mindsets that came together to talk about the issues in law enforcement. When you're in the sheriff's department, LA, everything is internal. It's deputies teaching deputies. And then the deputies go and they become different instructors and all the AOT, all the recruits. I mean, all the drill instructors, all of the sergeants. I mean, every class, for the most part, you might bring in some outside instructors, but for the most part, we all teach each other. Even our SLI, our Sergeant Leadership Institute, right? Our super school, I should say. The majority of it is taught by other department employees. When you get out of the academy and you go to bailiff orientation or you go to custody orientation, you're being taught by custody training division. You're being taught by court services training. So my point is that you're right. The training when they're getting ready to transition from custody to patrol is huge. And how do we break that down and and explain to people that you're going to this different environment? But again, you're being trained by the same people. So here's where I think it's different is what the culture is. Patrol, patrol. I go to patrol. I spent this many years in patrol. Patrol, patrol, patrol.
That's all it
Patrol's king.
is.
Yeah, you're nothing unless you've been a patrol, right? Well, guess what? When you graduate from when you go to name any other police department, name one.
Hermosa Beach PD.
When you go to Hermosa Beach PD and you hit patrol right away, the first thing you're doing is trying to get off training and get out of patrol. The rest of your career is trying to get out of patrol. It's trying to get to the beach team. It's trying to get to detectives. It's trying to get somewhere else. It's trying to get to motors. The sheriff's department, they're for, oh, patrol, 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 patrol. You ain't nothing if you're not patrol, patrol. Every place else, from the moment they get off of training, they got their eyes on how to get out of patrol. And all the sheriffs are trying to do is get into it and talk about how king and how great they are because of how many years or what they. So the mindset is completely different from those municipal agencies to the
Absolutely.
sheriff's department. But again, it's the sheriff's department training the sheriff's department. So I agree with you. The
I don't,
training is,
I agree that it's the silo. I get that, but you just brought it full circle with the mindset because not every officer, and I would say there's a larger percentage of officers who are there to do the right thing, whether they're in the jails, whether they're in patrol, whether they're in the courts. There is a
I agree.
larger percentage of them. But unfortunately, there's a fear to speak out against those very people that you talk about. I literally remember people that when I first came on the department and I worked in a custody environment, people who would actually try to create little pockets of narratives that fit their own personal agendas. Had nothing to do with the training. But if I'm going back to my training and me, I'm mature enough to know that's wrong, I don't want any part of it. At some point, we got to stop saying that it's the way that we're, whether they're going out to patrol, they're going out to the jails, if they go in courts first off, if they get special assignments, because some people have languages that they speak and they put them into special assignments right out of the academy. Not everybody goes to custody. And I remember that even back when I was
Right.
coming through in
Right.
the mid 90s. But at some point, it's the caliber of who we're hiring and who is the
I
ideal
agree with that.
law enforcement officer, and it's their mindset that they're, and I will go back to this, you show up with a larger percentage of how you're going to do this job than what you're trained with. I will go to my grave saying that because you can make that decision on how you treat another human being. And some of it, honestly, Eric, has nothing to do with what they were, these poor innocent recruits were sent into custody, and that's all they got a chance to see. And they don't have some culpability in the fact that you know what's wrong and what's right. You get people talking about an animal, well, folks will lose their minds. You
Right.
mistreated a dog,
You just
you
treated
will
a dog
actually have
right.
someone jumping all over you, but you can't see that treating another human being is
Right.
wrong. You don't get the
Yeah.
excuse to say, well, my TO, or like one of my, someone called me one day, and you may remember this, and said, hey,
Yep.
your daddy has a message for you. And I'm like, my daddy? What are you talking about? My dad passed away in 2012. Oh, well, your training officer. My what?
That's culture. That's what they
Yes,
never. I never heard that term before I came to the sheriff's
get it. But culturally, let me say this. It's also what you're willing to accept. And let's just call it what it is. You sometimes hire some very weak minds that are willing to go along to get along and do whatever is popular. You were just talking about people who are friends and then they not friends anymore because of politics. To me, it's an immature mind to not even be able to think for yourself. And here's why I say that. Even back in custody, I remember these two people that were the rovers or prowlers, is what they called them back then, because they would work the floor and relieve people that were working in the modules. Too scared to fight with this big 6'4" or taller black inmate that they were there to take to discipline. So they were supposed to deal with him. The little guy, little short Hispanic guy that was in the cell next to them, laughed at them. You know what they did? They popped the door and actually wrestled him to the ground because they're mad that they laughed at him. That this guy was laughing at them.
department.
I don't know if I can now say, well, I'm sorry, that's the way that I was taught, and it was because I was around all these people. Yeah, that's, you're going to be hard pressed. And once it was, I was not going to just say nothing. And I went to the sergeant and said, hey, this is not cool. I don't want no part of this. Because guess what? Those same two guys would not have defended me if the roles were reversed. Or they would have dumped it on, hey, she told us to come in here and she's the one, she pointed to the wrong person. Some people wear this uniform that, quite honestly, Eric, I don't care if you put them on the moon. as their first
I
assignment.
agree. Yeah,
And they
listen, you're
see
not gonna
only
get any argument out of
aliens.
me. Right.
They see only aliens once on the street. Some people are too immature for the uniform. I'm just gonna call it. It literally, you got in because your dad played golf with someone else's dad. We have several of those. We have the cronyism, that constant. And guess what? Do people really want change? Change may not look like what you think this uniform deserves. Change may be entirely something different. And what do? They say the same repeat things over and over and over again. I've never seen more officers in those small pockets of the what I consider immature, mad that the sheriff works with the board of supervisors. They want somebody that's going to fight with the board of supervisors instead of a collaboration. They don't even know what that is. They're like, yeah, this person will stand up for and make sure we get cowboy hats. Oh, did I say that? Same person that was mad about some belt buckles prior to that. It's like this. We have to be careful that we don't become the very thing that we despise. You become a criminal in uniform when you are mistreating people, but you have the nerve to talk about crime and how you have to take it off the street. Be careful that you don't become the actual criminal yourself in how you treat other human beings. Don't tell me you care about dogs and you can't care about another human being. And why is my crime even annoying you so much?
Right.
My crime is annoying you. And I'm here. I've already been arrested. I got to go before a judge. It's out of your hands at this point. But it upsets you so much that you're focused on me being a criminal. So I'm not saying that you're incorrect in, hey, the mindsets can be shifted by seeing so many people, a certain race of people or whatever in custody. But when does the maturity come in? When do people own the fact that you swore in this uniform that you were going to have courage and integrity and honor and all the things that sound so great while you're standing there taking the oath with your hand raised, repeating after me? And now I
Well,
get to pick and choose
yes.
who deserves that good service and that support and that, if you committed a crime, I don't care what color you are, you need to suffer consequences.
Right. And I
It, it,
think I think my point is I'm not taking away from the integrity or character or values of any one person. I agree with you 100%. And what kills me is like you said, you mistreat a dog or an animal and people will be all up in arms, but they'll sit up there and mistreat human beings all the time. But I think what I'm trying to say is this. People that have a bad experience at a young age with water are afraid of water. People that have a bad experience with dogs at a young age are afraid of dogs. People that have a good experience, you know what I mean? And so I'm just saying is that if you take a person, let's just say you take a person that has no experience with a certain demographic, black or brown, no experience with a certain socioeconomic environment because you didn't grow up there. You grew up in a strong middle class environment, and everybody looked like you, and now you indoctrinate them or you put them into an environment like patrol or jails where they're seeing what I'm saying right there, all of the same thing, all of the orange, all of the people look alike. I'm saying people can be influence their position on a certain thing can be influenced based on their experience. I get it. Yes, people that have much stronger values and core values and were raised the right way are not going to lose that. But I do think that young 20, 21, 22-year-old people that have very little life experience that get indoctrinated, they get brought into this type of profession where it's preached and it's etched in you about a brotherhood and taking care of your partner, and we got to all make sure we get home. I think there is room for influence there in a negative way. That's just my take
no,
on it.
no, no.
But I'm not
I totally
disagreeing.
get
I'm
it.
not disagreeing with you. I agree. You know what I mean? I just think that, maybe it's the people with the lower level of character or values that get more heavily indoctrinated, so to say. But
And
you know what I
I
mean?
think,
I think
I,
that, you know what I mean? It can happen. That's
yeah,
just, yeah.
I think that those that are more heavily, like you say, they are not, they have that mindset coming in the door are probably the ones we see in the headlines more often than anything else.
I
You
agree.
look back and you say, I remember that dude when he worked such and such, and he was always that way. You know, the mindset of arrogance and narcissism, and the way that people carry themselves. Some people just came in with that, and that gap is narrowing with
Oh,
social
I agree.
media. What
Yeah.
you didn't learn in your household, you are on there scrolling just like everybody else daily. So that's almost not it's almost not an argument. And pretty soon it won't be, because there's so much education of things that happen as a result of your mindset and what you didn't grow up with.
I
People are
agree.
learning quick. You have to temper yourself, whether you grew up with it or not. So that's just my take on it. In my opinion, and $10 won't get you a train ride. But um, jail versus patrol first was our last and final topic for this Code 3 Conversations. And I am going to round it off by letting you know that you can find me, CC Strong, at any of the platforms as CC Strong, but you can go to ccstrong.com and you can connect and link into all of those social media platforms. And you can also find this platform with our episodes previously, all throughout last year and into this one on YouTube. So, right now, I will take the time to say to you, and my team has all these beautiful graphics. I love it. So I appreciate them. So shout out to you all. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Code 3 Conversations. And for those of you who are watching in our live audience and who will be watching this on the recording, please, please, please get out to the ballot box on June 2nd. If you are a LA County resident, if you are serious about change and it's not just a bunch of talk, vote Eric Strong for Sheriff of Los Angeles County 2026. So Strong, the number 4 sheriff.com. You can find him on those platforms. And thank you, Eric, once again for another Code 3 Conversations. You are appreciated, and we will see you next time. Same channel. Bye for
Thank
now.
you much. You guys have a good one.